Hi guys, this is Andrew Burgess with NetTuts, and today we're going to look at web SQL databases. Web SQL databases are a new API that started to float around the web. They're kind of like some of the things going on in HTML5, but not really. What they are is a SQL database on the client side, right within the client's browser. So there's nothing or no database anyway stored on your server. It's all on the client side in their browser, and it's kind of the beginning of some more offline solutions that we're seeing come out of standards. So you'll understand it more as we go along, but let's jump right into it here. So I'm going to create a folder here, and we're just going to call this to-do app, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a little to-do list app. I'm just going to drag this into TextMate. Alright, so let's start by creating an index.html file. Oops. We'll just call this our to-do list app. So in here, let's link to 3 style sheets. We'll have our we'll get an Eric Myers reset, and we can just get rid of all of that. Let me just copy this. I also want to use the text.css file that comes with the 960 grid system. And finally, we're going to have our what we'll call default.css, which is where we'll be working in a couple of minutes. For scripts, down at the bottom, we can import jQuery, and let's also import 2 scripts of our own. One is going to be called tabs.js, and you'll see what that'll do soon. And the second one we will call tasklist.js, and that's where we're going to have our where we're going to work with the databases. Okay, now let's set up a bit of a structure here with a bit of dummy content to work with. We'll have a div with an ID of lists, and this div is going to have 2 divs within it, one with a class of head and the other with a class of body. So what we want is kind of a tabbed structure. We're going to have tabs at the top for each of our lists, which are going to go in the head, and then in the body we'll have the actual tasks. For now, let's just put in, we're going to bring this all in from the database, but so we can style it, we'll put in a sample list. We'll just say sample list. So that's what our structure is going to look like for the head. We're just going to have an unordered list with a bunch of and actually, let's just do this. We'll give this a class of current, because for the list we're currently viewing, that's going to have a class of current. So down here, each list is going to have its own div. It's going to have an ID. In this case, it's going to be sample, which is going to relate to the href for the anchor inside the tab. And for the one we're currently viewing, it too will have a class of current. Alright, and then in here, we're just going to have our unordered list for all of our tasks. So let's throw a couple of list items in here. Oops. We can say, I don't know, a sample task, and we're also going to put a span at the beginning here, and this span has to have a class of select. It's just going to be, I'm just going to make a kind of select box that will allow us to give the user some feedback to show whether they've selected a certain task. Okay, and for these, let's give these a class of selected as well. Now there's one more thing I forgot to add up here in the head. Underneath our list items, let's add another div here, and we're going to give this an ID of task tools. These are going to be our couple of spans for doing some operations on tasks. We're going to have an add task. Let's just give this a class of button. I'm just going to copy that, and in here we'll just say add task. Then we'll have one to remove the task, and we'll have one more to complete a task. Okay. So that's all we've got so far. I don't think I can add a folder here, so let's create a CSS folder and also create a JavaScript folder. There we go. In here we'll create a new file called default.css, and in here we'll create a new file called tabs.js, and one more called tasklist.js. Great. Okay, let's close those right now. We do need two more CSS files. Let me grab those. Okay, I got those. That's just you can see here, whoops, that's just Eric Meyer's reset, and this is the text.css file that comes with the 960 grid system. Alright, so we got those. So let's start working on our own, and let's actually just drag this into Safari here. So there's not much to see just yet, but we'll get some styling there right now. So I'll just leave this up here, come over here to default.css. Alright, so to begin with, our lists div, we'll just give it padding of 10 pixels. Now, for each of those list items, we'll set a background of C1, CB, CC, but that's just for, in this case, the browsers that don't support what we're going to do next, and that is a WebKit gradient. If you're not familiar with how to do gradients with CSS3, check out Jeffrey Way has a great quick tip on NetTuts on how to do this in WebKit and Mozilla. So you say WebKit gradient, we're going to say we want a linear gradient going from the left top to the left bottom, and we want to go from, so you give the from color and then you give the to color. We're going to go from, and we're going to use an RGBA value. We're going to say 225, 225, 225, and with an opacity of half. We're going to go to the same thing, 225, 225, 225, with an opacity of 0. So basically we're going to fade out, and what we can do then also here is say AA. So we're going to have this AAA as our background, kind of, and then this gradient will overlay that. So I hope that makes sense. And the reason we're only doing a WebKit gradient here is because currently Firefox does not support the web SQL databases. Right now the only browsers that support it are Google Chrome, Safari, and Opera 10.50, I believe, is the earliest version that supports it. So those are the browsers that support it. So that's what we'll be working with today. Alright, let's do some rounded corners here. We've got WebKit border top left radius is going to be 5 pixels, and we've got something similar for the other one is top right. Alright, we're going to display these as an inline block. Give them a bit of padding, 5 pixels on the top and bottom, 15 pixels on the left and right. We'll set the text color to black and set the text decoration to none. Actually, I'm sorry, this is supposed to be on the list anchors, not just on the list items. That's why we want text decoration to none. But we are going to do something on the list items themselves, so we'll just put that up here. And what we want on the list items is just going to set display to inline block and give them a bit of margin on the right. Oops. Okay. After that, we want to style our currently selected one, so we're going to say the anchor with the class of current, and since it's already selected, we don't want them to think they can click it again, so we'll set the cursor just to the default cursor. We'll again do the regular color overridden by a WebKit gradient. I'm just going to copy this up here. Oops. Copy line 12. Put that down here and adjust the values. Instead of using this RGBA value, we're just going to have that AAA that we had at the end there. And instead of this value here, we're going to go to that 7979, and then we can take that off. There we go. Okay, and now for the rest of the list items, we're going to use a CSS3 selector here. We're going to say list item, so a : not dot current : hover. So this not, what we're saying is get all the anchors that do not have the class of current. So when we hover over all of the tabs that we're making except the one with the class of current, we're going to do a background change. We're going to say DDF, DFF, and then actually, again, I'm just going to paste in this gradient, and we're going to go from, actually no, we're going to go from the RGBA, except that one's going to be 0 to RGBA 0.95, and again with the A there. So that's going from nothing all the way up to almost solid. Okay. So that should have our tabs pretty much figured out. If we come over here and refresh it, we're not seeing that just yet. And I think the reason is because this should be a div lists, and we are only saying lists all the way down there. So if we save that and refresh that, there you go. So there you can see is our tab. And since that's current, it doesn't look like we can click on it, and there's no hover effect because it has the class of current. Alright, moving on to our tools. We'll say lists with task tools here. Here we're only just going to set that to have our dark background. And for the spans themselves, span, we're just going to set display to inline block and give them a bit of a margin of 10 pixels. But that's because what we're going to do now is that class of button that we gave them, because we're going to need this button class a bit later on. So for the button, they're going to have a padding of 5 pixels on the top and bottom, 10 pixels on the left and right. We'll give them a pointer for the cursor. For border radius, 3 pixels. And of course we have to do that for WebKit. For the background of these buttons, we'll give it a WebKit gradient again. Let me just copy this again to save you the pain of watching me type that all out. This time we're not going to do an overriding or a kind of progressive enhancement value, because if it doesn't support the gradient, it'll just get the AAA, which is what we want in this case. And this is going to go from 0.75 down to 0. And one more thing here, we want a border of 1 pixel solid AA. Great. One more thing here for the button. When we hover over it, we're going to give it a background gradient. We're going to change this to go from 0.95 to 0.25, and we got the AA there. And then we'll give it a border of 1 pixel solid, and we'll change it to F3, F3, F3. So it's going to slightly almost glow. Alright, that's the button. Now, that's the toolbar. Let's check that out here. So there you go. Oh, looks like we're having a problem with our gradients, because those gradients should be, let me see here. The problem is, all the way along here, we are missing our RGBAs. And let's see, does that make sense? That's and then we need one more there. So let's see, that's for the WebKit, that's for the 2, that's for the RGBA. Okay, there we go. RGBA, add parentheses there and there. RGBA. RGBA. And that's it. Great. So if we save that, come over here, refresh it. We're still not getting those gradients. We will come back to that, and if I can solve that problem, I will do it. Okay guys, sorry about that. There we go. Now those buttons are working, and the problem was I was saying RBGA instead of RGBA. So a bit of a typo there, and because it was copied all the way along, that didn't help. But now we're back in order, and as you can see, we have our buttons here with nice gradients and our hover effect. So there we go. Alright, let's get back down to it. So after our buttons, what we're going to style is we're moving down to the body section. So we're going to say lists.body, and we're going to give this a background of #CCC, but we probably won't be seeing that, and you'll see why. For each of the divs within the body, and this is what each of our lists are going to be in, they're going to be set to display none. And that's because we don't want any of them to show except for the one with the class of current, and that one will have display block. And you know what we could probably do here, if you wanted instead, we could